There we go. Okay, now I think I have some sound going through. What's that?
Are you on?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not showing myself right
No,
now.
I was just gonna tell you something that means
Oh, you can. What's up? I don't know how it sounds because I don't think there's anyone here to talk. Hopefully. They can't hear Nugget snoring. Okay, so I'm going to be working a bit on this GOAP plugin for Godot. In case you're new to the stream, I'm a plugin developer generally for Godot. I also help people with it on different Discord servers. I'm happy to answer questions if you have any. Feel free to throw them into the chat. That said, I'm going to start listing out why GOAP, why not GOAP, and what makes it particularly annoying. That's the sort of reason I have these. This is going to be going pretty much directly into my README on GitHub once I have published this plugin, so should be useful for people to get an idea of my rationale behind why I'm making this plugin. So one thing that should be clear is this is a form of artificial intelligence. It lets you have characters that are pretty dynamic and sort of almost make decisions about how they're going to achieve particular things in the game. Let's just do it this way. You can achieve some really interesting stuff, and it's a pretty basic approach. You do have to do some loosely advanced stuff, but it's not difficult, it's just engineering. So in that sense, as AI goes, it's rather simple, and that's a good thing. That means you can focus on more important parts of your game, like the art or different things of that nature. One of the nice things too is you can get artificial intelligence to create a more complicated plan than you were expecting, because you can get some pretty complicated interactions between things that you're completely not expecting, because you might have multiple different ways of achieving a particular goal, and ultimately, you never know what you're going to end up with. obviously we'll be building in some debugging code. That way it lets you, basically figure out if things are working the way you intend. I'm going to be actually programming this into a game that I'm working on at the moment. So we'll actually get to see it working live. It should be pretty interesting. I have a little scenario that should be pretty cool. Hopefully that's true and not just silly. Let's see. Now, what you end up doing is you sort of, at least in my experience, you have a separate plan executor, and that executor is generally pretty easy to build. It's just saying, take me from this point to this point, this point to this point, and so on. So, unlike other AIs, there's no decision making done in the middle of this thing acting. This is both a good thing and a bad thing. I'll show some reasons why you don't like that here shortly. And ultimately, this is really just going to be a living document. So I'll stop there and go into why not. It is bad for highly complex worlds with changing states regularly. Now, what ends up happening is if you have a series of, this is why I remember it, if you have a huge number of states in your system, let's say you've got a game like, let's use StarCraft as an example, a real-time strategy game. And periodically, every single character in it, let's say it's using this AI. So every little worker going to collect minerals has this AI. The problem is, each time you gather a mineral, the mineral in a particular patch goes down, right? The amount of minerals in that patch remaining goes down. And the problem is, if you run out of minerals in the middle of the plan being executed, then the little worker can't finish the plan. So because the worker can't finish the plan, they need to have some way to signal up to the sort of an overarching bit of code to actually complete or make a new plan, whatever it happens to be. Maybe it's go explore to find more minerals. But that, in that sense, sort of breaks goal-oriented action planning, because you simply don't have a plan anymore. So you've had to change goals in the middle of a plan, which to me I think is very, very annoying. Another thing is it can be pretty inefficient. Let's say you create a system where you have some extremely complicated behaviors, and the plans, the goals, your number of states are pretty large. Let's see. So I just realized I forgot to post to Twitter. yeah, so basically, if you end up having a dynamic world where you're adding actions over time, so for example, let's say you discover you've got a research facility and you discover in the process of using that research facility, you discover a new set of a new goal which adds a bunch of actions that can be taken, and you follow a particular plan. If that plan, or I should say, if the number of actions is growing sort of exponentially, which it may well be, you end up with you can have way bigger plans than you're expecting. And not just bigger plans, but the actual planning portion of it can be really big. And because of that, you can either, depending on what you're building, you could run out of memory if you're on a mobile device, or it could just take forever because your steps, the end plan might, or the end goal might end up requiring thousands of steps to get through it. And if that happens, then who knows what's going to happen. Something that I personally have run into is I have a plan and I want to, like, in the process of doing the goal, you have to have a particular step be taken twice. You can't have that really in GOAP. You technically can, there are ways of doing it, but if you do that, you could easily get into a situation where your actual planner, not the executor, but the planner, just goes back and forth indefinitely between two steps. And because of that, it can lead to some very seriously hard to debug situations, and you don't generally want that. That leads to just significantly more complicated stuff. And really, you want this to be simple. Some of the things that are uglier, changing plans while they're executing. So an example of this is, like we said earlier, with mineral patches running out in a real-time strategy game, you might signal up to an overarching sort of AI, or even just a thing that says, hey, I need a new plan. But if you do that, you might end up making the character basically repeat a bunch of steps. And that's just really painful and not, it's not really what you want. So you end up deciding, oh, well, in that case, I'll see what step they're on. I'll try to find an equivalent step of that somewhere in this plan, and then just continue execution from there. But you might not be able to find that step. And so you end up having to go through a bunch of hoops. Another problem with this is essentially why would it replace it like that? That's done. A character dying might, in the middle of 3 characters that have plans. So let's say you have an enemy and 2 NPCs, and the 2 NPCs are trying to interact, and the enemy comes along and kills one of them. Well, what does the other NPC do? It says, I now cannot complete my thing. So basically this all leads down to partial completion of plans, more complex code. Another thing that I think is ugly, requires generally speaking, a state machine. And the reason you use state machines with it, for the simplest possible reason that I can give, is your goal sort of is a specific state. And so saying, I'm going to go towards this state, it just makes sense logically. And state machines, even though they can be quite ugly, in my opinion, it is generally the accepted way of handling this. So you might have a state that is, for example, searching. And so your goal might be sort of a subset of searching. It might be go looking for an enemy. It might be go look for a hiding spot. It might be go look for an NPC to interact with in some way. It might be go find the player and attack them. So because it has this extra layer of state machine, that can lead to more complexity. I think for now I'm probably going to leave this sort of as is. I am going to continue with some more writing here. I apologize, I know it's kind of boring, but there are a few things that I need to take into account for the README, so I don't want to miss that here. Discussion, implementation. Okay, so one of the things that we could use here are classes directly. Those are extremely basic. They're pretty straightforward. They usually inherit from reference. I would consider doing it. I think it might be better just to use nodes, so I'm probably not going to use classes. Simple, clean, easy to use. The problem is they aren't really discoverable. You can't modify things on the fly. You can't put something into the editor and edit it. So I don't really like the approach for this. Resources are simple and clean and discoverable because you can easily find them in the editor. You can even say like make a new resource, have it do this. The problem is it's hard to access the scene tree. This is Godot specific. You might not run into this on your platform. This just so that it's clear, but because it's hard to access the scene tree, you end up with some pretty significant workarounds at points. Simple, but I don't think this is clean. So I'm not actually going to put clean here. It is discoverable for the same reason as resources. But what's bad about nodes is that they are tied to the scene tree. And that means if they're tied to the scene tree, then whenever you, for example, switch scenes, you have to be careful not to delete everything out of it. You might want some plans to continue running. That's a thought up here. So I consider that to be a good thing of GOAP, is because it's not inherently a visual thing, you can actually test it. You can do essentially anything you want with it, and you end up getting some pretty cool stuff. So in that sense, I really like it. Running it sort of offline, let's say, in other words, without the actual things happening, though, implies that you have to use some sort of either a node that you directly put into the scene tree that doesn't get swapped out, so it can run, you know, even after a scene changes, or you have to do some other sort of bizarre thing to make it work. And I think what we're going to do is just use a global scene, and as new actions and goals are added, I'll just have them be added directly to the global scene, and that way when we swap scenes it doesn't really do anything. So let's write that down. I do think nodes are the right approach here. In the past I tried it with resources, and because it was so hard to access the scene tree, I ended up with a lot of workarounds, which I don't like. The other thing to note is we can actually directly store the game state in that singleton as well, and that gives the nodes a known path, sort of the action goal nodes, a known path for how they can find the game state and interact with it, as well as everything else. One thing I wanted to add up here, bad. One of the really common game architectures is called the blackboard architecture, and it's used for artificial intelligence. And essentially you can think of it as having an actual blackboard, and you change things on it over time as the state of the game itself updates. But in that sense, then, these states are regularly changing, which means GOAP is going to have some difficulty figuring out, hey, can I actually complete a particular thing in like an actual plan or not. It's going to be pretty complicated in that sense. So what we'll do here is probably we're going to try to simplify it and make it so that while our world is dynamic and interesting, it's not so many bits of data that an individual bit of AI is going to, crap out at a moment's notice. So hopefully that makes some sense. So let's see here. I think I'm going to go ahead and actually get started. I think we have enough data here to go ahead and actually do some programming. So what we are working on here is the actual implementation. I'm going to I'll show the game here eventually. At the moment, it's just a basic little ARPG type game, and you can actually see things happening in it already. See a broken computer. See my little character in a wheelchair. It's not really a wheelchair, it's a hover chair. So this is some pretty cool stuff already. This is the main character named Jean. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to give Divi, that's the girl in the wheelchair, I'm going to give her some of this artificial intelligence so that she can make a little plan for fixing this computer. This all I'm doing right now in the game itself is building out her room. This is on a big prison ship, so she's just got a little room to herself. But in the process of the game, she will also go out and explore things just like you do, completely on her own. And that's why I want to use GOAP. I want to make my characters sort of have lives of their own and be able to do things in the game that otherwise, would seem just too complicated. You wouldn't want to do this with just a state machine. You'd end up with a lot of issues if you did that with a simple state machine. Okay, so since I'm making this a plugin, I've got my little plugin script here, and all this does is, in this case, it adds a singleton, this script, to the tree. And now something that occurs to me is we actually need this to be a scene, so we're going to switch it over to TSCN, and in here we're going to create this. Go, notice it's the same name, and we're just making a normal node. We don't need anything too complicated. So now that we have that, let's go ahead and reload our plugin. The general thing here. Hit update though, and re-enable it, so it should go back. And now if we go into our auto load, you can see it's already loaded. So what we'll do is we'll access it via this GD GOAP total thing, and that will put us into the scene. So that's really nice. And let's go ahead now and we'll add our script. See, it's already there. So we'll just hit add. And now we have a global node scene that lets us modify it on the fly as we need. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add a series of nodes here to this through through the plugin, and then I'll remove them when it exits the tree so that we don't get any memory leaks. And the way you do that simply is this. So add custom type, and here you're going to put what the name is. So we're going to call this actually we're going to go with GOAP goal. Sounds a little dumb, but I want it to be sort of distinct in case people have goal nodes in their game. The base is the base type. We're just going to go with node. The script is going to just be a script that we build in here, so we're going to say preload. Let's go with this. Okay, that's a path, so we should be good there. Preload, and notice when you go here, this does have an actual script, not just a string. So because it's script, you have to preload it. So we'll do that, and we'll just take this one for now, and then we'll say goal here. And for icon, I think you can pass null in here. Hello, welcome. I haven't had anyone telling me if they can hear me or not yet, so let me know if you can hear me. That would be nice. Ah, cool. Oh, I didn't know you were there, Sam. Thank you. So, what is this complaining about here? Can't preload. Oh yeah, of course you can't preload it. It doesn't exist. That's fine. We're going to add another custom type. This is going to be GOAP action. Also going to be node action. And all these are going to be are... That's cool. No problem. That's sort of what I was hoping people would do. All these are going to be our states, essentially, so Boolean values. Goal is actually a series of Boolean values. But what I don't really want to do here is make a dictionary or a list or any type of array. I just feel like having dictionaries when you're working with nodes is extremely painful, especially because you're going to export them. So I'm just going to make a couple equivalent things here, and we're going to say this is going to be a composite goal. And we're going to make the same thing as this, only we're going to say composite action. The idea there is sometimes you'll have actions which can update the state in significantly more complicated ways so that you're achieving a lot at once. Leave it at that. And the last thing we got to do is remember to do this. Remove. We need to do this for everything. Let's just make sure that's the excuse me, thing. Yes. I don't know why it wasn't taking me there. Probably because of the error. All right, let's go ahead and create our scripts so it stops complaining at us. Node. This is scope goal. And to believe it or not, what I'm going to do is duplicate the file. Say composite goal. And I'm going to duplicate again and say action. And we're going to duplicate that and delete composite. Okay, that actually should be everything. Yes. Now, let's go ahead and do this again. Now that should give us something really nice. Hey, it's Sam Dyer. How you doing, my friend? Long time no see. Glad you're here. Let's attempt to add one. This is the nice thing about add custom type is you can actually go here, hit add child node, and notice they're actually down here. Everything exists. So if we say here's a goal, we can actually edit the script while we're in the editor like this. Oh, hope it's not COVID, man. And because we can edit it right here, we'll be able to do things sort of dynamically, and that's really nice. Well, hopefully you're gonna be okay there, Sam. Hey, Jangly. Good to see you too. So for the goal, all it's going to be is export string. Let's say going to be the goal name. Let's see, what do I want to do here? I don't think we actually need a boolean here. We just need a signal. Or do we even need a signal? I think that's all going to come in the action executor, or the planned executor. I don't think we need it here. So we do need, okay. We need a current state. Whether or not this is true or false is basically whether or not it's complete. Might make sense later on down the line to have a type here, like an enum perhaps, but at the moment I'm just going to go with boolean. And next thing we're going to do is we're going to say instance child scene. Oops, that's not what we're going to do. We're going to just do add child. And we're going to say composite goal. Now, for this one, we have this extending node, which is slightly wrong. What we actually want here is to extend, see, this is composite goal, GOAP goal. And the reason we're going to do that is we're going to say, instead of current state, or not instead of, we're going to use that, but we're going to make a setter, or more specifically, just a getter. Of course, it's getter. So we'll return a bool. And what this is going to do is we're going to, well, first of all, let me do this. Oh, this is in the wrong place. Okay, I think we actually do want that here. We're just going to leave it like this for now, but this is going to be virtual, so we'll override it maybe later if that's possible. Hopefully that actually works the way we want it to. But what we're going to do, we're going to say class name GOAP goal, and then here we'll say this says extends GOAP goal. Nice. I didn't know that had gotten fixed. What was the bug again? It was causing like weird rendering issues or something. So let's see what happens if we can, in fact, override this. So for simplicity's sake, we're just going to do this. Essentially, all this is saying is look at the value and set it equal to the previous value and the new value. So it will run through every child. If at any point result becomes false, it'll break and return it. That's just so that we short circuit this thing. So now essentially what this can do, hopefully, if you can override setters like this, is you can add children to this now, and you have a series of goals in here that will function exactly the same way. Yeah, hopefully that actually works. Let's go ahead and add our action. Give this a name as well. I'm actually going to remove the class names and swap this to go to that instead. Even, if that's how that's pronounced. Essentially, I do have a little blurb here, but you can't see it. But GOAP stands for Goal-Oriented Action Planning, and it's a form of artificial intelligence. And what my plugin will do is it'll be just a drop-in solution for creating some complicated artificial intelligence for your game. And my hope is that it can be used by anyone to just drop it into their game, add, in this case it's going to be essentially a bunch of states and actions, and be able to create their own complicated behavior without much work at all. There probably will be some work still, but it's not going to be anything compared to if you were just writing up your own AI from scratch. So that is the hope. This will be my README. So once I've published it, I will be putting this into the README file in GitHub. And just as an aside for everyone, I'm planning to use this plugin for the GitHub Game Off Game Jam, along probably with my Firebase plugin. There's been a lot of movement on it lately. Got a lot of people have been enjoying contributing, so I've got a number of new contributors, and pretty excited about that. So hopefully I can make a pretty cool game using this stuff, and we'll see what happens. Okay, so now that that is back out of the way, feel free to ask any other questions you want. It's good question to cover the basics. Let's go ahead and so that is that, yes, okay. Now we will add a action. This is the basic action, so we don't need too much here. This is just going to be, we don't even need a name technically, we just need to know that there is an action. So ultimately what this is going to be is so we do need a name, actually, now that I think about it. And essentially, what this is going to be is state name, actually. So once we have a state, it's going to be just a JSON dictionary. That's going to be stored up here, so we can actually just go put that in presently. Save var. And what will essentially happen here is every goal will configure this to be a number of different things. The actual planner, the thing which builds up our plan, will go through this game state. It's going to duplicate it, and it's going to say, well, if I change this to be this, what exactly, is the end result? And yeah, that's where this is going to come in. So we need a key into this, obviously, and it's just going to be the string that we get out of this for the state name. But this is just one change. What if you want to change multiple little pieces of the state in your plan, or I should say in your world at once? Well, in that case, we need a more complicated one, so that's why I made the composite action. Now the composite action, so this is on not the composite action thing, this is. So we're going to say this first, clear this. We're going to come to our action. Let me close some of these things so that we're not focusing on other things. Okay, we're going to make a setter. Again, it should be just a getter. So that's for the action. And now our composite action, I'm actually going to take what we have for composite goal and override get value instead. And here, this is just going to say value. I think that's what we had, yeah. So if this works, essentially, what will happen is our setter for this, I keep saying setter, our getter for the value here will actually run through all the children. So now we can have a series of actions underneath this. And I think that's just generally pretty nice. So what we're going to do now is we're going to actually put together some goals and have a state. And in this case, we're pretty much just doing this for the purposes of demoing, but it should be kind of interesting, and hopefully we will come up with some nice complicated behavior. So yeah, clear that. Delete all these nodes. Okay, so let's think about, first of all, the current state for our game. Well, if we have a broken computer and we want to fix it, I don't have functionality to do that just yet. That's fine, it's not going to destroy anything. But what I do have here, which is really nice, is this Navigator 2D. This is another plugin I've made that is really, really useful. And what it does is it allows you to navigate through a navigation mesh however you want. So if you're using a normal node, it'll put you through using a normal node. It'll take you through a navigation mesh, even if you're a kinematic body 2D, which my characters are. And so because it's doing that, I have the ability to look at the mesh, build steps to go through it. So I can have sort of endpoints, and I do have a signal already that says, hey, I'm done. So the nice thing about that is I can build a path that includes, I should say, a plan that includes navigating. And that is something which is really, really nice and useful. So given that, what we're going to do here is we're going to change this up just a little bit. I'm going to immediately disable auto tile, delete this wall, and I'm probably going to, I'm going to delete all these points for now. These points are just random points I put in that my character will randomly go between, but since I'm now doing a more complicated behavior, I'm going to remove the random points and navigate through things normally with like a sort of a plan. So what we'll do now is, let's see here. So we'll say for our state, if we go back, we're going to start off with computer broken true. So that's our first state. We're going to say Divi has screwdriver, let's say, false. And let's go with door unlocked, false. Let's see, what else do we want here? I forgot a comma. Divi has door password, false. So this is purely just so I can actually see things working. I haven't actually started the programming of the actual planner slash executor yet. I'm going to be doing that very shortly. So let's see here. We've got her room. I'm going to delete this start navigating because it's going to become something else later. So we have some nodes you can see in a group door. So what I'll do here is I will add a child node. I actually haven't made it yet. It's child, so there we go. We need a locked side door. This side door, we're going to move it and we're going to turn on locking. Oops, that's not what I wanted. We've got pixel snap on. On the left, it should be that. Oh, there we go. All right, yeah, pixel snap on. Okay, so this door now is locked. What that does is, if you look in game, so I can do this automatically, put my little character in, brings up a keypad. And this keypad, you put in some values. In this case, it's going to blow up because I haven't added the appropriate things. I need a resource for this. In that case, I've got a resource here. And this is just a random one. So when the character comes up to it, he can put in something and hit that. In this case, it opened it. It shouldn't have. And the reason it opened it is because there's no actual checking here. Unless I just happen to accidentally pick it, which is extremely unlikely. Let me see why that might have happened. That had to have been a fluke, right? I couldn't just have guessed the... Okay, there must be something wrong. It's also not actually doing the thing, so my guess is I need the equivalent computer here. So what I'll do is I'll add a door unlock computer. This computer I'll put right here, and the way that works, if I go to it, put it in the wrong thing, there we go. Now we put the same unlock code, and probably what was happening was it didn't correctly know that this thing couldn't be opened. Huh. Oh, I must have a bug with it. Oh, that's right. Need to add it to... Oh, that's weird. I actually made a bug here. I forgot to add this to lockable. I actually open all my other doors to see if I forgot that as well. Nope, looks like I have it on all the others. Okay, so given that, this should actually lock. I'll show you in a second, Sam. There we go. Now it doesn't open unless you have it. Okay, so that resource is very straightforward, actually. Pretty happy with it. I just took a list of digits, a digit count. In this case, I'm giving it a digit count of 4. It just copies, shuffles, and adds that to the code. So what ultimately it does is it just provides one code to tie two pieces of things together, or more. This will only get run once, basically, as you can see here. If that is not set, it will set it. And it should be random every time. So, but if you go to it twice, and you get the same code, the same T-res, of course it won't do that. So as you saw, it didn't open it, but if I go now to the computer that works, 7834, and I come over here and put that in, unlocks the door, and I can go through it. And now the door is permanently unlocked, and I can go through it. It looks a little funky. Now the idea is I'm going to build another bit of room over here. I'm going to extend the navigation mesh into that room, and then we'll make it so Divi can figure out how to go into that room and get a screwdriver. So let's go ahead and build our room out a little bit over here. We'll put autopilot back on. smaller room here. This is going to be a full game. At the moment, it only really rises to the level of demo, but ultimately this is going to be a pretty big game published on, I'm hoping, Steam. It's for once not a mobile game. Kind of rare for me. But yeah, so that is that. It's a little weird. Oh, that's because I have. That's annoying. I don't know if this will even work. Let's take a look. 2435. Yeah, I made it so you can't walk through those. So I don't really have a door that fits here, actually, and that really bothers me. Let's see if I can, first off, just move this door down so that it makes sense. That actually sort of looks okay. Let's see how that looks in game when it goes off. 0546. That looks alright, actually. I don't mind that. Okay, cool. Alright, so let's see here. Now what we'll do is we'll just make a little screwdriver and maybe a little bench. We're just going to make the screwdriver 16 by 16. So I'm probably going to go back later and make something a little more complicated. But for now, this is just going to be my screwdriver. And we'll go ahead and make a bench. Let's have it take up a width of 2. So it's going to be 64 by 32. And let's see, our colors generally are sort of bluish, grayish. So let's make the top a sort of a dirty looking sort of color like this, and we'll actually even dirty it up later. I'm sorry, there's a lot of noise outside right now. I don't know if you can hear it. Highlights, so it looks a little sharper there. The idea behind this is, yes, it's a highlight, but it's also going to be dirty, so I'm going to break it up a bit. This is not a particularly nice place to live. It is a prison ship. So I'm creating some dirt and dust and grime around the outsides of this bench. Idea being the main portion of it is probably going to be used way more often than the very ends, because you don't want things to fall off. Edge of this is actually going to be pretty dirty, because when they walk up to it, they run into it a lot. I'm just going to darken up the legs a bit. Okay, if we go back to 100%, that looks all right. If I take my screwdriver, which looks a little silly, but I'll put it on there. Now it's a little hard to see. So what we're going to do is we're going to change that in the screwdriver, I think. I will lighten this up a little bit. Generally speaking. Take off the corners here too. Make it look a little bit more interesting than just a square. Last thing actually that I'm going to do here is okay, so that looks a little bit 3D-ish. This is a little bit too tall now. now we darken this up. Things underneath and behind will look darker. Let's take our screwdriver again, see what that looks like sitting on here. I'll go ahead and rotate it. Sort of looks okay. That might be too light. I actually like the handle. Back to dark on that. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little color into this. Be like a power source sort of. Actually, I'm going to do it this way. Take this right here. Yeah, I think that'll look better now. All right, have a good one. I like that idea. Revenant. There we go. I figured it out eventually. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going with. I do actually like reversing those colors though, so I think you're right. I'll make the tip blue and the handle red. I don't love this red actually. It's a bit orangey. I'm going to leave it like this, I think. I'm going to put a little bit of highlight there, or in this case it's really low light. Alright, so that makes it look a little bit more 3D, and in general, if I rotate this, put it on there, even though you can't really see that well, I am going to change the table again. The look and feel is much better, I think. Alright, let's keep lightening this up a bit. Take a bunch of these and just kind of there's just a little bit too much dirt and grime for this table. So we'll physically lighten it up. The problem with this side piece here is it looks like the grime is meant to be a shadow and not dirt, so I don't like that. That looks much better though. Now if we throw that on there, you can see the main shaft much better. Alright, I think we're just going to go with this. Let's go ahead and save it. Call this workbench.png. Okay. Now we're going to create a new doodad. Now, doodad in this case is just something which is interactable. So in this case, the doodad is going to be the screwdriver. And we'll find our asset here. Seems I forgot to save it. Okay, that re-imported. Now, I'm not going to rotate it here. I'll rotate it in the other one. But we'll give it a shape. I'm going to use a capsule shape, I think. I'll take that back. We'll go rectangle. And make it pretty big so you pick it up if you're anywhere near it or close to it anyway. I guess I do not have a doodads folder yet, so I'll just put it in there, which is not really what I wanted, but whatever. We'll make this take up a full square. That way we can sort of set it wherever we want. So this interacts with player. It is on the doodad layer. Now the reason that's relevant in Godot, of course, is Divi is not technically on the player layer. Or she might be, but she's not supposed to be. Let's see what she is. I guess she's on the player layer. But yeah, she actually shouldn't be. So I'm going to take her off of it. And in fact, I'm going to put her on the NPC layer. Because she's an NPC. This is the only player. The reason that's important is if I were to have her navigate to this door, it would bring up this pop-up, which I don't want it to do. I just want her to essentially say, I'm at this thing, and doing so gives me a code. I don't want her to pop up stuff on people as they're playing, because that would be really weird. Sorry, I got distracted by a question on PigDev server. Not PigDev, Heartbeat, sorry. Okay, so we're a good portion of the way there. We can now use a screwdriver, or potentially we will update that in just a little bit. Let me go ahead and add a sprite. Call this workbench. Now notice, even though I can't see it, if I put that on move, I can move it to where I can see it, which I really like. Put it here. That looks really snazzy, actually. I'm really quite happy with that. Oh, thank you very much. I'm not that good an artist. In fact, the characters here are built by my team. I've got a team of 2 others working on the visual arts. And I do have some music and so forth going with another guy, but I haven't incorporated the music or the sound effects yet. So, but I make the non-characters. I'm not particularly good at characters. I might try to make one a little bit later, but I'm not physically very good at it. So I have to practice more. What I am going to do, though, let's throw my screwdriver in here. Now, one thing that's weird, as you can see, is it disappears. And the reason for that is it's actually in this tile set, or tile map, which has a Y sort turned on. And what that means is the image or the node or whatever, the order of it visually rendered depends on its Y value. That's why they call it Y sort. It's sorting the rendering based on the Y value of the node. So in this case, my workbench, if we go look at the Y value here, is 49, and the screwdriver, the Y value is 48. So because the Y value of the workbench is higher, it's rendered in front. Because if you think about it, in Godot, values that are higher are down further. So because the workbench is 49 and not 47, for instance, the screwdriver is going to be rendered underneath of it. So what I need to do is I need to go into my screwdriver. What we'll do is we will remove centered. We know our this is doodad. This should not be player. This should be NPC. That's the important bit. Z-index doesn't work dynamically very well. It's much better to use Y-sort and not have to worry about that on the fly. So generally speaking, I avoid Z-index like the plague because when things are in different places, you want them to show up behind it. Like, for example, if the character is carrying this thing and walks behind the workbench, you want this thing to show up behind the workbench. Makes sense, right? If I were modifying the Z-index, I'd have to worry about where the tile map is, I'd have to worry about where the character is, I'd have to worry about where the screwdriver and the bench are, and I don't want to have to deal with that. So instead, I'm using this. Okay, the reason we changed that, and we also have to update the area so it looks like it's actually properly positioned. Extents are 16. Oops, that's definitely not what I want. Oh, they're 16 by 16, which means half of that is where we want it, 8 by 8, so that puts it directly back in the center. So if we go like that, and then we come back in here, we can take this. Now see, it's going to have to be down further. But we also want to do that to our workbench. That's why that's important. Centered. Because now we take our workbench, pretty much put it anywhere. We'll take our screwdriver and rotate it 90 degrees. Now, one thing I don't have the workbench being is a kinematic body. It means my characters are not kinematic, but static body. It means my characters can move through it. I am tempted to prevent that. I think for now I'm just going to ignore it since this is not really about the game or the product here. It's about the plugin that I'm working on. So I'm just going to leave it as is. And now notice in my screwdriver I changed the area's layer. So it's still on doodad, but now it only interacts with NPCs. So when the player comes over, let's test this out to make sure. 6, 7 through 9. Well, there wouldn't be any interaction because it doesn't make any sense. I don't have anything hooked up to it, but so what we are going to do here, I think we're going to add excuse me, script here. We're going to hook up to this. And because Divi here, as you can see, the character you can tell is a kinematic body, I want it so when her body enters this thing, it gets picked up. Oops, that's not what I wanted. So what we end up doing in Screwdriver is we connect to body entered. And what we'll do is we'll say body.has screwdriver equals true, and then also Q free. I don't feel like making it so that the screwdriver looks animated, all that stuff. I'm just going to delete it from the scene. We'll have record of it this way. So now that's one action, is pick up screwdriver. So the first thing that's going to happen is the player will, I should say the NPC will have to go get it, and to get it they'll have to go to the door. Oh, the door is locked. To open the door they'll have to go back to the computer. They'll find the code, and then they'll go from there to unlock the door. The door will open. They'll travel through and go get the screwdriver, come back, and yeah, that's pretty much how that's going to work. So we have a little plan that can work out. Let's go ahead and update our navigation polygon. I have it on move still. So that's one of the problems that's weird about polygons, is if you're in move mode, it won't show you sort of what you're expecting. Not sure exactly what this needs to look like. I'm going to do this. And sort of hope that it works. Notice I'm cutting out the bench itself. I will change one of these values in a little bit here. Wrong actually. So I'm going to get rid of this whole bit here. This through like this. And because I'm lazy, I'm not going to make it as complicated as before. Okay. So, how do we want to do this? Well, what we'll do is we'll put points in here, and we'll make some actions. Excuse me. We will take those points and reference them essentially in the actions. Not exactly, but yeah, that should work absolutely fine. These are just position 2Ds. And if we go back and look at Divi, Okay, so I export her position group. That's for random positions, though. We're gonna work straight with these positions, so let's keep it. I'll just keep them in here. We'll say screwdriver position. We'll move that here. Hopefully she will navigate right up to that. Change this one to computer position. Move that over here. One thing I'm going to do with the computer actually is I'm going to prevent it from being one that the player can interact with. This one, we'll just make it editable in place. It should remain on doodads, but instead of player, it should be NPC. And here we're going to extend the script. That is the right script to extend. I hit the right thing, or I hit attach. That's weird. So we actually wanted to have the same stuff. The only difference is instead of all the pop-up, we don't need any of this stuff. We just say body.has code. It's true. Then we'll go to Divi and we will say that for now. I'm not sure. If this is all going to work, but you know, it is what it is. What I am going to do here also, do the same thing with this. Make the collision layer NPC, not player. Going to detach the script, add a new one. That's a node. Okay, and we're going to get rid of the label pop-up. For now, I'm just going to pass. Get rid of those. Make sure that we editable children and disconnect that so that never happens. Okay. All right, it's looking like I need to get some lunch here because I'm losing some steam, so probably I'm gonna turn this off for now. Hopefully I can come back to this shortly and actually start showing how I'm going to implement the AI, which was the whole point of this. You can always ping me on Facebook or Discord if you have questions. Same with Twitter. Thanks all for joining me, and talk to you later. Bye.